Welcome to Ask Earl Anything. This is the show where your questions make the show. If I have questions, I have a show. If I don't have questions, I don't have a show. This week I have some questions from recent videos and my last show, my last Ask Earl Anything show. A lot of exciting things happened this month in the month of May for me and drumming. And even though we're in COVID-19 hell still, it hasn't changed very much. But today we're going to have some shout outs. I'm going to tell you about my drum lesson I have taken, and I'm going to deal with some questions. So let's start with the first thing, which is some shout outs. Now, one of the things I enjoy doing on YouTube is finding new drummers and drummers that are really great to watch. And one of the things I've been doing as of recently is a lot of time on Instagram. And I've been building my Instagram up for the last 3 years right alongside my YouTube. But really my Instagram gets basically the scraps from my videos, the best of from my videos. I put them in little segments and put them on Instagram. Haven't spent any time on Instagram other than possibly helping to channel some people to see this channel, my Earl Drum channel. In actuality, I've been looking at my numbers and stuff, and those of you that don't know this, I've been at this since 2017, and I've progressed pretty well, all things considered. I've had 1,000 subscribers each year for the first 3 years of doing this, and I just hit 3,000 subscribers. Thank you all my subscribers, thank you so much. But I think the majority of my subs come from 20 videos I have that are over 1,000 views, and they're in that kind of YouTube rotation. The most popular being the one on Christian, playing church drummers, playing in church. And I have a couple other videos that are pretty popular and important. And they're all videos of me talking about cymbals, and I have one on ride cymbals, and one on hi-hat cymbals, and one on crash cymbals, and one on Paiste cymbals, and one on Zildjian cymbals, one on Sabian cymbals, a lot of that kind of stuff. And that's what you guys watch. That's why you guys watch Ask Earl Anything. So anyhow, the long and the short of it is, yes, thank you, I've reached 3,000 subscribers, but one of the things I thought would help me was this Instagram channel. But Instagram has become one of those places where you have to pay kind of to get views and stuff, and I refuse to do that. Refuse to go pay somebody to promote my video, so I never do that. But I've seen some really cool drummers out there, and one of the cool drummers I saw on Instagram also showed up on YouTube, and he's a guy that loves Chicago, Steely Dan, Tower of Power. He's a great college drummer. I assume he's in college or he just got out of college. I'm not sure where he studied, but he's definitely studied some of the classics, the Garibaldis, the Danny Serafins, among all the other pop guys he studied, the Steve Smiths and other things. He's got a lot of chops, and I want to shout out to him. I find his channel to give me a lot of inspiration for the younger generation wanting to learn from some of the great musicians that are out there. I mean, not that the younger guys today, the newer guys, are not great musicians. I think there's a lot of great technical players, but when it comes to groove players, I think a lot of the groove players that I enjoy have come from my era, the studio guys, etc. So this guy's name is Tate Berkey. I want you guys to check him out if you haven't checked him out already. He plays a lot of Chicago, a lot of Steely Dan. He's got a traditional grip style, and he's really a good drummer. So I'm throwing a shout out to Tate Berkey. Another guy I want to throw a shout out to is a friend of mine, a good friend of mine. He comes down here every winter. His wife rides the horses, equestrian horses. He's a New York City drummer, a guy named John Favicchia. And John's been down in my studio. I took a lesson with John a couple years ago. He comes and does some drummer hangs with me when we can, when we're not in COVID-19 hell like this. And lately he's been building up some of his YouTube chops, and I want to shout out to John Favicchia. He's got you're going to start seeing his videos in Modern Drummer soon. He's doing some stuff for Modern Drummer. He's a Vic Firth endorser, a Sabian endorser, Yamaha endorser or Remo head endorser. He's got all kinds of endorsements and stuff. Great teacher. He's got a book called Elements. I want you to check him out. You know, maybe subscribe to his channel. It'd be great if you could. And he's got some really cool content, and he's a really good player. So he's another friend of mine I really wanted to promote. So 2 shout-outs this week. And there'll be more shout-outs. I think I'm going to add shout-outs to Ask Earl Anything. I'm going to do some shout-outs on some new guys. So I'm looking for your feedback on some of the new people that, you know, deserve shout-outs. I've given shout-outs in the past to a lot of the guys in the drum community here who I appreciate, you know. And a lot of you guys give me questions, like AR Drummer or George St. George or Kelly Kumatsu or Jeff Holden or Beats by Jay or Little Drummer Channel. These are guys I mention all the time, or Drum Covers by Bill or Johnson Drummer. I mean, there's a lot of guys that I've over the years have mentioned and have done shout outs for. But I just want you guys to listen to some new drummers and some new people out there, and I think that's going to become a part of this Ask Earl Anything show. I want to tell you about my drum lesson with a famous drummer, but I'm going to save that for a little deeper into the show. Let's start with the first question today. And my first question comes from a new sub. His name is Jeff Howell. He said, love the drums and sound. I've got a vintage 8-piece Slingerland drum kit coming with concert toms. Would you recommend retrofitting to RIMS mounts? Now, the reason he's asking me that question is I've been doing a lot of videos with my concert tom kit, my Pearl fiberglass concert tom kit, and I put RIMS mounts on them. And the reason I put RIMS mounts on them is I didn't want to drill holes into them. I actually have drilled holes into them, by the way. I am a mean machine with a drill, okay? I put some standard Ludwig style tom mounts on it for a while because I had some Ludwig mounts. But to put Pearl tom mounts on any drum is a 7/8 hole pretty much, maybe a little bigger than 7/8, and then the three screw holes for it. And I have Pearl 7/8 tom mounts on this Gretsch drums. And originally when I got these Gretsch drums, they went right into the shell. I took them off the shell into RIMS mounts in 1988 after recording an album in Nashville with a band called Saved by Grace. By the way, I have a drum cover coming out by Saved by Grace. It wasn't one that I played on. It was one that my a great Nashville session drummer and kind of friend named John Hammond played on. And John is another guy. I just saw him with Amy Grant a couple months back before the COVID thing hit, end of February. And got a chance to talk to him. That was a highlight of this year, was getting to talk to John Hammond after all these years. But this is one of the songs he played on. It's a song called Jesus After All, and I'm doing a drum cover of it. So be looking for that to be coming out soon. But I digress. The reason why I got into RIMS mounts came from that Nashville session where I realized that RIMS mounts add that extra sustain to it. Now, from the perspective of concert toms, Jeff, to be honest, you don't need the sustain. Usually what you're doing with concert toms is taping them all up and making them sound all dead. But for me, for mounting a lot of toms around, I have a bunch of extra Pearl tom mount holders that I can put on multi-clamps and stuff, and it's become an essential part of setting up that concert tom kit. So I have this mounting system, which is better than the clip mounts. I have a couple clip mounts on some of the drums, especially the 8 and the 10. I have an 8 and a 10 with the clip mounts, which is fine for those two drums over here. But when it comes to mounting toms around the kit, I want to have some different levels, okay? And I had a recent kit. I did Little Genie by Elton John, and I had the 8 and the 10. I had the 10 and 12 regular tom, and then I had 14, 16 concert tom over here, and a 14 by 14 floor tom, and that really set up nice. And I used that for a bunch of Chicago covers I did recently. Matter of fact, I have more Chicago covers coming out. I just did Saturday in the Park, but that's just the beginning. I got 3 more Chicago covers from real obscure Chicago stuff from Chicago 6 and Chicago 7. So, do I think you need RIMS mounts for concert toms? Long-winded answer is no. Now, if you don't have good mounts, and you've got some other mounting system, and you don't want to drill holes in your toms, buy RIMS mounts. That adds another $30. You can buy them used, okay? I bought a few of them used for cheap enough where I wasn't spending $40-50 a RIMS mount. So look on eBay, guys are dealing, and you can find some deals on old RIMS mounts. That's what I did for that kit, and it worked really well. So I would say you don't need them, but if you want them, it's a cool idea. One way to do it. Next question comes from Jason Floyd, another new guy. And he asked me, it was after my prep last Ask Earl Anything, he asked, what are your thoughts on Rototoms? Well, I have one cover out there. Actually, I have two covers with Rototoms on it. One you can't see anymore, which was Fragile by Yes. No, it was from the Fragile album by Yes. It was called Roundabout. You can't see that anymore. YouTube Hell came to me on that along after I put it out for a couple hundred views. I had like probably about 500 views on it, and then they shut it down. So you can't see that one. I have another one on a Van Halen tune called Mean Street, and I used the Rototoms. I have a 10, 12, 14 up there. Kind of fit the Alex Van Halen thing pretty well. Did a nice job of it. I like Rototoms. I have a couple. I have 3 of them. I've been looking for a 6 and an 8 for a long time. I just don't want to spend $100 on a 6, 8, 10. The 16 and the 18 Rototom are way too expensive, usually around $200 on eBay used. So for me, I acquired my Rototoms this way. I have a good friend, my friend Pat O'Donnell, who sent me the 12 and the 14. And the reason he sent me the 12 and the 14 was he got a 12 somewhere. He's not using them, it was just hanging around his house. And the 14 was mine at one point in time. It was my first Rototom I ever bought, was a 14-inch Rototom. I remembered a picture of Danny Seraphim with a Rototom over here off of the tube floor toms. I had to have one, got it. Of course, the size he had was a 16 or 18, I think. And then he had a picture of him with an 18 over here, a big, huge one. I didn't really use it much. The funny thing was Pat sold me his 6, 8, and 10 Rototom when I was in college. I used them for a while, then I sold them. He picked up a 12. I gave him a 14 in a trade. And eventually he sent them back in a box. Said, here, have this. I don't need this junk. So I got the 12 and the 14, and then I picked up a 10 for like $20 on eBay. And I thought, maybe I'll buy a couple more. I just haven't bought them. That was about 7 years ago. So I can use the 10, 12, 14 for things once in a while, and I will use a kit that way. But the truth of the matter is, with the concert toms, it kind of negates the need for the Rototoms. But I use the Rototoms sometimes for a timbali effect. If I tune them up really high and get that timbali effect, I think that's kind of a cool use of them. But Rototoms are cool. You just have to mount them. That's the other problem. Again, you're looking at how do you mount a Rototom. And those straight mounts that they put them on don't really give you flexibility. So I've been doing things with a DW dog bone on a rack. I have a rack I use from the big kit sometimes, and it's my son-in-law's rack too. It's not even mine. I used to own a rack. I used to own a Pearl rack, but I got rid of that years ago too. It's just kind of funny how that all works. Anyhow, all that to say is Rototoms are cool. I like double-headed toms or my single-headed toms better, so that's what you see me using all the time. Thanks for the great question, though, Jason. The next question comes from Drum Covers by Bill, and he asked a question about why I don't have any cymbal, the traditional Wingnuts here on the cymbals, which I do use, by the way. This one over here, my China this week has got this is an old Yamaha cymbal stand. The funny thing about cymbal stands for me is I've had cymbal stands for years, and I have no pride in having brand new cymbal stands or having DW cymbal stands or having a whole set of Pearl cymbal stands or Tama cymbal stands. I'm more about having the right pedals, by the way. I have a nice Iron Cobra pedal, and I have this is a Speed Cobra hi-hat stand, and I got a DW hi-hat stand, I've got a Pearl hi-hat stand. But when it came to my boom stands, over the years I've just been acquiring pieces, and I have some old Yamaha parts. Actually, it's this one right here. It's got the old Yamaha on it. So my cymbal stands are all just put together. I throw anything together. I don't care. If it fits in the hole, it works for me. That's what she said. Anyhow, sorry about that. But bum. Didn't mean that. For the young viewers, you probably didn't catch it, so thank you. Let's go by. But I have a hodgepodge of cymbal stands. That's my thing, a hodgepodge of cymbal stands. Except for my Tama Classic hardware, which I use on my gigging kit for the last year and a half. Just love that hardware. And if I'm doing a gig, that's the hardware I'm going to bring along with me on a gig. Lightweight, 21 pounds, it's worth it. Every penny of it, every penny of the $250 I paid for that hardware, I love it. It's the best hardware out there, as far as I'm concerned, in the light hardware. A lot of guys like the DW stuff. They want to spend the extra 100, go for it. But for me, the Tama Classic works really well. They got a really nice tom stand that I bought too. Another 50, 60 bucks that was, 70 bucks. It was worth it. I plan on buying another one of those, so I'll have 3. Right now I have 2 old Ludwigs that I use once in a while too. Now, back to Bill's question. I brought that up because of this. I do use nuts once in a while. This is a Tama. This goes on those Tama Classic stands, and they go on a lot of hardware, a lot of old stands. These are kind of nice because they're quick. I like to be able to take my cymbals off. That's one of my things, you know. Like if I want to switch a cymbal, I just want to take it off. A la Steve Jordan. That's a Steve Jordan thing. So a couple of years back, I got these things called Cymbal Crowns. And a cymbal crown is actually, it's just a piece of rubber. And it goes on a stand. It doesn't mess it up. It's rubber and plastic clip. It's real easy to take the cymbal on and off. But it does stop it from coming off easily. You have to basically know how to twist it off. I've been using it so long, I kind of have it. But if you come from the wrong side, get stuck, it won't come off, and you're like jerking it around and stuff. So anyhow, I have a couple of those. They're about 10 bucks each. I bought 2 of them. This is usually on nothing because it's just a ride. Now, what's the concept behind that? The concept is the cymbal's free, so it rings freely. And the problem when you choke it down like this one, which I love choking Chinas down, is it does kill the sound a little bit. If I hit this and I choke it down, you can hear how it's just killing it. So even this is designed to kind of be free. So, I don't know. I like kind of the free kind of thing with the cymbals. So I'm a fan of this, especially for my studio. Now, I will say when you're traveling with felts and stuff and they don't have anything on it, you can lose them, and that's a problem. But I do have one of my flat bass stands, my Ludwig flat bass stands, which, by the way, I want to shout out to Michael Perry. He gave me some parts he had hanging around. He sent to my house one day, and I made a stand out of it. I had some parts and put them together, made 2 cymbal stands out of it. When I was at Maxwell's Drum Shop over a year ago, I bought these long, basically, they're just cymbal nuts without anything on them. And you just slip the cymbal on it. And I put them on one of those stands, the old Ludwigs, and it works really great. And by the way, it works fine, and it keeps the felt stays on it. But if the felt falls off, it's going to fall off in the bag. And I have a couple extra felts with me in case I lost it. So that's my reasoning, Bill. It's really nothing more than ease of taking something off a stand. You know, I still need 2 hands to do it, but you know, that's all. And for crash cymbals, having the movement. If I use a splash or use a China, it's always going to be sandwiched because I need that kind of choky thing for those cymbals. But yeah, that's just me. Thanks for the question, Bill. All right. Next question comes from a new guy, Steve Roginski. He was commenting on Chicago's Saturday in the Park. He said, "Nice job, Earl. After listening to some of your videos, and the audio quality of the drums and the cymbals, I'm thinking possibly of a preamp into my interface. I'm thinking possibly the preamps in my interface are not very good. I don't get an okay sound with an enormous amount of EQ, compression, expansion. I'm using 10 mic setup with a PreSonus AR16 USB for the past 3 years. It was a ton of bang for the buck, although not exactly thrilled with it." Well, let me talk about miking drums, studio setup in a very small, compressed nutshell, okay? First off, I think a big part of drum recording is the room. If you don't have a decent room, drum recording becomes very hard to do. So one of the things I tell guys is you got to have a decent sounding room. That's the sound absorption stuff I have here, the carpet on the floor. I'm just blessed to have a decent sounding room. That's number one. Number two is a decent sounding board and mic pre's. I am using a PreSonus Studio Live 24x4x2 for the majority of my tom mics. Now, I do have some really nice preamps for my overheads and my kick and my snare on this kit. Okay? They're boutique 7-circle audio pre's. I rate them up in all my videos you see me talk about. J99s, N72s, A12s. They're expensive. They're about $2,000 worth of preamps there. So I spent that. I think it really does get me something in doing some recording, like especially acoustic guitar, vocals, overheads. I think it gives a little bit of character, and it sounds really nice. But I will be honest, I've been doing a lot of covers in Studio B, and that room is not a great room, and I have no problem with my PreSonus, the PreSonus board. And I know it's the first version of this board, so it doesn't have the best pre's in it either, but I actually have gotten some decent sounds with it. So the next thing is some decent mics. My mics for overheads, I use SM81s out here and Octava MK012s, Russian-made microphone inside Studio B, and they sound great. That's helpful. The other part is some decent tom mics, don't hurt. I've just purchased these mics. These are in the last week. These are the Sennheiser E604s. I've been looking at them for about 10, 15 years now. And I just did a project where I recorded an album for a band called Mona Lisa Tribe. It's coming out on Spotify. I engineered the tracking and I did some percussion on it, but my friend John Wagner played drums on the album. Check it out. All the drums on the album were recorded here at Sanctuary Sound, and 5 of the tunes were cut here at Sanctuary Sound. All the tracks. The first song that they released last summer, the drums were cut here. Then they finished it at another studio in town, a friend of mine's studio. So because of that project, I was able to buy the E604s. Love them. They sound really fat, get really punchy, and I'm looking forward to trying them out on the concert toms and other places in the future. But for now, they're on the main kit, and they sound really nice. SM57's a good mic. I've said this before, that any mic you can use for toms, I'm starting to dial that back a little bit. I think having a decent tom mic is not a bad idea if you want to have really quality sound. So mic pre's definitely help. I think the biggest thing is the room. The room and getting the right sound on the drums. Having your drums dialed in. And I will tell you, if your room is not really good, and my room's not perfect, I mean, it's if you want that bottom sound, you need a big room and a high ceiling. I don't have that. So I have to put reverb and stuff on it. Well, the easiest way to do that is to make sure I mute the toms with tape and things. And a lot of guys don't like that. They don't like that about me, that I do that. But truthfully, when you're getting a sound, especially on a snare, matter of fact, the most wide open thing is the kick drum on this kit. There's absolutely nothing in the kick drum, but I got an EMAD head on the back head. And I got a Power Stroke 3 Renaissance head on the front. But it's wide open. I don't think there's anything in it, really. So, I mean, that right there is the openest drum I have. Everything else is taped down a little bit. You need to do that too. You need to get your drums in that kind of range so you can record them. As far as plugins and stuff, I use Universal Audio plugins, and I think that helps my sound too. So the Universal Audio plugins, into Logic, the 4 good preamps for my overheads and my kick and my snare, some decent mics, and I think you get yourself a good sound. But the other thing is learning how to use your ear and learning how to engineer. So all those things are part of it, Steve, and it's not one thing. So don't go buy the latest and greatest if your room is terrible. It's not going to help. Fix the room. I had a good friend, my friend Pat O'Donnell, who gave me the Roto toms, and he had a basement studio, and he couldn't get a good sound. And I went down there with some packing blankets, and we stapled them up on the rafters and stuff. And he's got a really dialed-in sound now, and it works. Plus, he doesn't mind putting tape on stuff. He's not afraid to do that. He's old-school New York guy, New York pit musician, recording musician, jazz musician, classical. He plays everything. He's a composer. He's not afraid to put stuff on it to get the sound he wants to get. He's got a little old Yamaha recording custom kit. Very cool. Maybe I'll throw a little bit of that on the back end. My friend Pat, if he had a YouTube channel, I'd be definitely hawking that for you. He doesn't. But maybe I'll take some video from that session on it. Oh, I have that somewhere. I got to pull that out. I did last summer. Anyhow, all that to say is that's my thing. If you have any more specific questions, I'll try to dial into that next time for you, Steve. But that's kind of an overview. I have some videos about my studio out there and plugins I use. Just gotta have to dig deep into my drum talk videos to find it. So give it a look-see. Last question before I go into my lesson with John J.R. Robinson. I want to talk a little bit about that and my experience with John J.R. Robinson. But my last question comes from Richard Burton. He says, for the next Ask Earl Anything, could you please discuss the concept of the drummer refraining from stepping on the vocalist? And this came out of the drum cover I did of All Out of Love by Air Supply. Now, most of you guys probably realize this, but I am just playing whenever I feel like playing these days. I've said this many times. I say it on my comments. I say it on Ask Earl Anything. The fact I'm playing an Air Supply song tells you I like Air Supply. Yes, I do. I like songs. I'm about playing songs. And if you're a song drummer and you're about playing songs, if you're with a band like Tower Power and it's complicated, you can play a little complicated. That's cool. But if you're playing a ballad like All Out of Love by Air Supply, there's a lot of space in there, and being able to play and stay out of the way of the vocalist is a very important part of being a drummer in a song-oriented band. Most of the church music I play has got that same concept. You got to stay out of the way of the vocalists. You don't want to step on them. You want to help them find their way on a lot of the church tunes I play and songs I play. So how do you do that? Well, now I'm going to give you my secret. This is my secret. It's called listening. One of the biggest problems we have as drummers is we don't listen. We're thinking about our next lick. Can I fit this in? Can I do this? Can I make this happen? And I'm as guilty as sin about that too, by the way. Especially when I'm doing a cover and there's a cool fill in it, I want to get it kind of close. I have a tendency to do that. All drummers do. So drummers, a lot of times when we do that, we rush or we drag, or it doesn't feel natural, the fill doesn't land properly, and sometimes we call that going for it, which can be cool. And in the old days when the whole band played together in a room and they all went for it together, the band moved together, you know those records where the tempo moves. That's okay. They're all in the room playing it. But today, the way we record with click tracks, and it's got to be perfect, and they're going to put you on the grid anyhow, and once you play your track, they're trying to get some emotion out of it, but they're still going to move your notes. This is the world I live in, by the way. Most of the music made today in churches is all grid stuff. It's all about playing on the grid. It's all the time. I just played on a song from our church called Paradise Hymns. The band is called Paradise Hymns. It's on Spotify. And I'm on a song called Arrow. And just came out. I played some brushes and I played the rock section in 2 parts to the song. And I'm positive I was gridded, You can still hear me in it. And they didn't over-grid me, but I'm on the they grid you. That's part of what they do today. They grid the best. That's one of the things you kind of learn, is that they're taking the best drummers today and gridding it, and that's what we're losing in music. But if you want to learn how to play for the song, you got to listen to songs, and you got to listen to how drummers stay out of the way. So I listen to the classic drummers that know how to stay out of the way, and those have always been studio guys. Those are the guys that know how to make money at this and work in the studios. And when you play in the studios, 90% of the time, it's not anything special. It's just what's required to play the music. You know, so you're not putting your stamp on it. You're playing what needs to be played for the music. That comes from listening. So the more you listen to music, the more you're going to become sensitive to it. And the other thing is play with people. If you play with people, you'll be more sensitive, okay, to how you play, and you won't step on people. I've played a lot of gigs with a lot of people. I love girl singers. I've worked with a lot of women singers, mostly my wife, Mrs. Hammer, for years in a band with her. But girl singers, guy singers, there's one thing in common. They don't like it when the drummer steps on them. So you got to know when you give them, the vocalist, that room. Okay? It's okay to set them up with a fill, but sometimes the fill's got to be simple and less complicated. That's where Pat Boone, Debbie Boone comes in, you know, or Pat Boone, Pat Boone, Pat Boone, Debbie Boone. That's a very simple kind of fill. But those are the kinds of things that really set up the next section. And those are money fills. So learning how to play with other musicians only comes when you get out of your bedroom and you stop playing drum covers and you play some gigs. Let me say this about me. I've been playing for 45 years. I have only been playing drum covers in my studio for YouTube, even though there's a lot of them out there, almost 500 of them, by the way. That only came after years of playing gigs with real musicians and real people. So I don't know how to play anything but play for the song. That's what I'm saying. And I think that's the detriment for a lot of young players. They don't get to play for the song. So play for the song. And that leads me to my last little bit I wanted to talk about on Ask Earl Anything today. And that is my drum lesson with John J.R. Robinson. So a little background. I was on Instagram one day, and I have John J.R. Robinson in my feed. And it came up, I went through one of his things that came up on Instagram. Then I started going through his Instagram stuff. And about 10 posts back, I found something that says, John Robinson's available for drum lessons. So I wrote him, did some email exchange, came to an agreement on a date and the price. Not going to get into any of that good stuff, but I will say that I took a lesson with John Robinson, and it was an amazing time. And if all things go the way they should go, I will probably take another lesson with John Robinson, or I will get him to talk on my channel. I'm trying to talk him into that one. But either way, the first lesson was eye-opening to me. What I did for this lesson was I told him what I really wanted to do was just talk to him. I just wanted to hang. I wanted to hang, and I wanted to get into his head about his concept as a player. And we did go down that road. But he said to me, he said, hey, have you worked in the Syncopation book? And if you have, you know, you want to talk about some of my ideas for the Syncopation book. So in the lesson, he showed me an exercise in the Syncopation book. All right? That's the first thing. Second thing I brought to him was I sent him some videos of me playing. And I had the audacity to send him videos of me playing songs he's played on. So that was kind of funny. One of them being Back in the High Life Again. Another one being a song called Reunion by David Benoit. And I forget what the third one was. I sent him 3 videos of me playing John Robinson songs. He was fascinated by the videos, not so much because I was playing on them, not at all. He was fascinated by the fact they had no drums on them. And he said, where did you get the drumless track? So that was one of the first things that came up in the lesson because he said, I watched your videos and I have some pointers for you. And I thought, well, that's cool. That means you're going to have something to give me. And he gave me some really good pointers for my playing. And I'm going to tell you those secrets in a minute. But he asked me, he said, where did you get the drumless tracks? And I said, X-Track Stems 2. And I went in to explain it. I was sitting at my computer having this lesson with him. And I had one of my drum covers up. I was just doing Diamond Girl. And I showed him how it worked and what it sounded like. And anyhow, I may be giving him some drum tracks using X-Track Stems. Because he asked me for some songs, and I'm working on that for him. So trying to get him some drumless tracks for his clinic work he does. Because he's done a lot of stuff, and he's got Michael Jackson, the ones we got. He's got the same ones we got. Michael Jackson, he's got Change the World, but he doesn't have Higher Love. He doesn't have, Back in the High Life. He doesn't have All Night Long and Just a Gigolo and I'm So Excited by the Pointer Sisters. By the way, that's where All Night Long came from. For those of you that are in Europe and Australia saw my cover of All Night Long. Those of you in the United States, you did not see that cover. YouTube's been blocking a lot of my videos lately, and that was one of them that got blocked. But it was a partial block. I've lost a lot of other really cool videos. They just blocked them. I can't even play them. Too numerous to mention. But the amount of output you guys don't even realize. I've got videos in the can I can't use. So that was cool. That came out of the lesson, and I'm working on some stuff for him on that. So I do think I'm going to have another lesson at some point. That's one of my goals with him, is to have one more lesson, or to actually record it through Skype and play it for you guys, and actually do an interview about his career and about his playing and about playing with bass players and all kinds of stuff. But we talked. Oh, the other one was the Brothers Johnson thing. It was one of the Passages songs I did. A CCM thing he did. That's the other. I knew I sent him 3. So here's what he told me. He said, one of the things I noticed in your playing is that you're a right-handed player and you favor your right hand. And he said, I've got an exercise at a syncopation that would really help you to kind of work on your left hand, your left side. And after the lesson, I really started looking at my videos critically, and I realized I favor my right hand. Open-handed playing I can do, but it's not strong. And, I mean, I can do it, but like pushing the E's with the left hand takes a lot of work and thought. I just did a cover called Breaking the Ice by Sweet Comfort Band, and I was doing this. And I'm not in the pocket with it. Well, that open-handed thing is a JR thing. He does it really well. Listen to All Night Long. The song All Night Long, he's doing it. Watch him play one of the Rufus tunes. I forget what I was just watching. Ain't nobody does it better. He's doing that same pocket thing, but he's slapping the left hand. All the ups and the E's are coming off the left hand. Well, you know what? That takes a lot. I cheat. I push the E's with the right hand, and I lean on my right hand. A lot of you guys know this, because I'm one of these guys that... rather than... Ansley's here. Anyhow. Sorry about that. That was the cut. All right. So, open-handed playing. John Robinson. He's known for it. Back to JR and back to the lesson. So, he gave me an exercise using page 37 of the Syncopation book, where it's like it's triplets. of paper I can read. The top line I do well, and I really got a lot to work on. But it's all about... that kind of stuff. And you take the top line of 37 and you put triplets in, hand-to-hand triplets in it. I will maybe share that as a lesson at some point, but that I'm nowhere near. I have no chops, man. I mean, I sit there with my pad in my office sometimes, and I'll just go by it for about 5 minutes, and then I give up, and I read a couple lines of it. It's going to take a while for me to get into it. It's a very cool exercise. So he said, hand-to-hand, need to work on that left side of your brain. And that's what, after 45 years of playing drums, I have realized that I have learned how to cheat. And that's what drummers do that have to work. They figure out how to play something and make it work. And that's what I don't have the time to fix, is to really sit there for hours to fix that. Because when you're playing a gig and you got to work, you're going to find a workaround to make it work. And if you watch my drum covers, I normally do that. I find a way to make something work. I did Anita Baker's Same Old Love. John Robinson played on that, I believe. He did it hand-to-hand. I could not do it hand-to-hand at that speed. So I basically went to single-handed and made it work. By the way, in the lesson, he said to me, one of the things he really enjoyed about my playing was I wasn't copying his parts. He said to me, I really like the fact you played what you wanted to play, and you came up with your own thing on it, and that was really cool to him. So I thought that was a big plus for me, hearing that. The other thing he said was, when you're going for fills and you feel like you got to get it in, that's when you have a tendency to rush or push the fill. And that's usually when guys make those mistakes. So he said, when you're playing, just let it flow and don't think about what you're going to play, just let it flow. Now that is something that when I have my best drum covers, I just let things flow. Last time we talked about the Asia preparation. Well, part of the Asia preparation was those fills just came out of me because I really wasn't thinking about what I was going to play, I was just letting it flow. When you see me do a great drum cover where there's some really cool, nice fills in it, I'm just letting it flow. That's the cool part. So it really gave me some insight into my playing, and that was something I really needed to see. So now my goal is to work on the left hand lead stuff on the hi-hat, open-handed playing, accenting off the left hand more than accenting off the right hand. This is going to take a long time, and this is not going to happen overnight, but there's some things to work on using the Syncopation book and accents. Okay? You can do it with accents and rebounds. You can find any book where you've got accents that's forcing you to accent with your left hand, and you can work on these kinds of, that side of your brain, that side of your body that needs to be there. The other thing is when I'm playing a cover to not be thinking it, or if I'm doing a drum track for somebody, to not force the fill, but just let the fill that comes out of my brain work. And 9 times out of 10, that's the appropriate fill for the song. And if I'm not trying to force it, it works. I just did a cover called Praise, Part 1. It's another Seawind cover. And that song is an example of me just playing freely. And I think it's some of my best drumming to a song that's a very free song. So it allowed me to play all kinds of stuff on it. So that really was one I actually practiced, that idea of just free playing. The other thing I asked him about was, I have a tendency to push the click on the first beat on the kick drum, and I'm always kind of just a hair ahead, we're talking milliseconds. And he gave me a tip for my bass drum, because his thing is flat foot, and he said, by playing flat footed, he's learned to play relaxed, and he just lands with the click on the 1. Right? So I said to him, I'm working on flat foot. I can play flat footed for jazz, but I don't really get the power of playing rock. And he said to me, well, here's an idea. Take the beater, and I showed him my pedal. I showed him how it was set up. And he said, take the beater and just move it back about 5 degrees. and maybe that'll be just enough to get you right on the beat with it. So that's one thing I've done on this pedal, I'm trying to do is set it up that way. The other thing I'm doing is I'm trying to work with a click and record myself just playing. And see if I can just land it on the one, make the one. Now, another one of his concepts he taught me is when he uses a click, he likes to use a quarter note click. And the reason for that is he has all that space to play with the other notes. So there's different philosophies on how to do click. In Nashville, they talk about doing eighth note click. And I actually did when I did the Danielle McManus album, the MD, Hamilton Hardin, basically set up a 16th note click where you had like a it was like kind of like in the background kind of loopy thing, and it kind of that was the so you had like 16th notes going. John Robinson wants quarter note click. That's because there's a lot of space in there. And he likes messing with that space with the way he plays it. And that's how he gets the feel. Now that's not me, I'm not JR, but that's that open-handed thing he does. So if you ever watch him playing, take note of a few things I just told you. Number one, he plays flat-footed a lot of times. He plays a lot of open-handed stuff, and he's worked on himself to be balanced, meaning his left and right side he can play off of either side. Those are things he learned in Berkeley. Those are things that can be worked on using the Syncopation book and that exercise I told you about using triplets. I gained a lot of knowledge from him, plus a lot of little insights on some of his playing and playing in studios, and I want to dig a little deeper into that aspect of him. But for the most part, it was an awesome time and a great lesson. I had a lot of fun. So all that to say is, thank you for watching Ask Earl Anything. Yes, I'd put this at the end because I'm hoping some people will watch it to the end. But if not, you'll skip ahead and you'll find me talking about JR. But it was a lot of fun, a great lesson. If I have any more lessons with him, I will let you know about it. Thank you all for watching. Remember, your questions make the show. If I don't have questions, I don't have a show. Thanks a lot. Take care. See you next time. Bye. 1, 2.